Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now, it has been so long. I think the last video that I posted was like 9 or 10 months ago, which is absolutely insane. Life has been so crazy. And I know I feel like I always say that, or at least in the videos that I filmed in like the last 9 months that haven't made it to the light of day. But life has been crazy. First thing I want to say is the lighting is a little bit funky and I'm still trying to work out the kinks. I, in the last 9 months, rearranged my entire room, which is where I do my filming. And so I moved my couch here, so I like sort of have the window, but then I also have a light. So we're looking a little bit funky with lighting today, but hopefully you guys don't mind while I figure this lighting situation out. But today's video, we are going to be doing a January and February wrap up. So what I read in those 2 months. Now, I ended 2021 in the world's largest reading slump. Like, I'm talking like not even Whatever Life Throws at You by Julie Cross could get me out of this reading slump. Heck, you can see it like on my shelf, like right there. And I still have like my receipt bookmark in it. I didn't even get through it. Like, that's how bad this reading slump has been. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know my do or die, things we know by heart, love normally is a thing that I just love to death and could get me out of anything, but it could not get me out of this reading slump. So I had very low expectations coming into 2022 of what my reading goals were going to be. In fact, I made my reading goal for 2022 17 books. Last year I read 31, but I couldn't bring myself to put, like, I really wanted to do 25 because I'm also like a full-time uni student at this point and working like a job. So like I was like, I don't know how much time I'm gonna have to read. So 25 seemed a little bit ambitious, but then I was in a huge reading slump. So I was like, we're gonna go 17 because at least I can hit that and then surpass it, you know? But anyway, we had a really good January reading month for audiobooks. Audiobooks are the things that have saved me. If I hadn't read any audiobooks, my my completed reading goal and like what my January and February wrap up would be 1, but not even, because the book I just finished will be in my March wrap up if I end up filming that, because I only actually read it in March, which is now. I need to post this soon. Anyway, let's get into what I read in January and February. So since they were audiobooks, I don't have the physical copies to hold up, but I'm going to put pictures here and chat a bit about what I thought about them. So the first book that I ended up reading in 2022 was Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. Now, this book was so good. Like, this book made me so happy. It was everything that I wanted and was not expecting. Now, as you guys know, I'm a romance reader. I cannot read a book without romance, so I was a little bit concerned going into this Viking story with like a little bit of romance, because I was like, what if there like isn't any at all? When I was promised like a little bit, I was concerned about how interested in the story I would be. But my God, it did not disappoint me at all, and I was absolutely in love with this book and these characters and the premise, and I'm dying for any more Viking books. So if you guys have read any good Viking books, please leave them down in the comments below, because I am simply obsessed and I cannot stop thinking about this book. So Adrienne Young is a YA author, and as we know, I'm not really into YA. What I'm looking for and what I want to read right now isn't things that are appropriate in the YA genre, though as I always say, you can be any age to read YA. There are just certain things that are appropriate to put in YA books for the targeted market, and then things that aren't appropriate, like schmut. So I am just definitely kind of reading more adult romance books and in that direction right now in my life. But I saw Sky in the Deep on, you know, floating around BookTube and Book TikTok, and curiosity got the best of me, and I was like, you know what? We're gonna give this book a go, and I have no regrets. It was, I think I rated it 4.75 stars. Honestly, it's 5 stars. Like, from the amount of times that I've been thinking about it and just like reflecting on the story, it is 5 stars. And her writing was so beautiful. It reminded me a lot of Jessie Kirby's writing in Things We Know by Heart, about how the story is kind of for a younger demographic, but the writing is just so good that you're just like fully immersed in the story and you can visualize everything. It was just absolutely amazing. And so the story, what is the story about? Let me give you a horrible blurb, because another thing you guys might remember is I cannot describe anything properly when it comes to books, which is really inconvenient for having a BookTube channel. But alas. All right, so our main character Elin is a Viking, and they live in a very small like Viking fishing village, and they are at war every 5 years with other Vikings that live up in the hills, in like the mountains and the trees. And Elin lost her brother, which was her sidekick in battle, and she is one day on the battlefield fighting these warring Viking clan, and she sees her brother on the battlefield and her mind's going crazy and she doesn't quite know what she's seeing, and then all of a sudden she leaps out of battle to go follow her brother, and she gets captured and gets taken back to her brother's clan that her original clan is warring with, if that makes any sense. And the story is just her learning the truth about this kind of clan that she had all of these misconceptions about, learning to heal from the wound that her brother left, and also the grief that she had with the way that he died and and getting back to her family and just like coming together despite your differences. And I know that sounds really cliche, but it was honestly so well done, and the book was simply so good. So the next book that I read was the 4th book in the Vampire Academy series. I believe it was Spiritbound by Rochelle Mead. So this book, I have some mixed feelings about this series. I feel like if I was younger, I would have enjoyed it a lot more, and if I had read it in the time of publishing order, or not in the time of publishing order, but if I had read it when the books first came out and like the space between them, I feel like I would have liked the series a lot more. My problem with the series is that there's a lot of repetition. I did enjoy the book and I did enjoy the story. I just have like, I love these characters. I remember watching the Vampire Academy movie when I was younger and just falling in love with the characters in the story and forever wanting to learn more about it. So I love it from that aspect. You know, my younger self being able to kind of like live this story and see where these characters go and learn more about them. So I love it for that reason. My trouble with the story is the fact that it unfortunately is so repetitive. We are on the 4th book of a 5-book series, and in the 4th book we're being re-explained the main character and how her family died tragically. We're being re-explained, you know, what Rose Hathaway is and what Dampiers do. We're being re-explained like what the Strigoi are and like their magical abilities, or not magical abilities, but their abilities and like what they are trying to do in the world, and then also the Moroi and their magical abilities. And it's just like, yes, I understand that, you know, maybe some repetition needs to happen, but these are like fundamental like things in the series that you should know by book 4, if that makes any sense. And I guess my thing is that I listened to the audiobooks of this entire series, except my library that I was listening to the audiobooks through only had book 1, 3, and 4. So I haven't finished the series yet. But they didn't have book 2, but I was like, you know what? It'll be fine. I'll skip book 2. When has anyone ever said I'll skip book 2? Well, I mean, probably a lot of people, because second book syndrome is a real thing, but like in a series that they're enjoying. Well, there was so much repetition in book 3 that I read last year that like I felt that I had read book 2. Like I feel confident that I could answer your guys' questions on the events of what happened in Spokane, Washington with the Strigoi. I'm just saying. So for that reason, I got 3 stars. Like it was still good and I still enjoyed it, but it was way too much repetition for me. The next book that I read in January was Fable by Adrienne Young. Because I had loved Sky in the Deep so much, I was really addicted to Adrienne Young's writing and had been curious about Fable before, well, not before Sky in the Deep, but I didn't realize that Sky in the Deep was written by Adrienne Young. I was interested in Sky in the Deep, but I was also really interested in Fable, not realizing that they were written by the same author. And my thing with Fable is I enjoyed it, but I much preferred Sky in the Deep. So I gave Fable 3.5 stars. It was really good. Like I thoroughly enjoyed it. It just wasn't as good as Sky in the Deep, and I wasn't as attached to the characters or the story or what was happening. So like it wasn't bad by any means. Like I did enjoy it, but it wasn't as good as Sky in the Deep, which I mean, I shouldn't be comparing them, but I kind of am. Plus, Fable had so much hype because I had seen it like literally everywhere. So the story is about our main character, Fable, and her dad is like a very successful merchant. And one day their boat sinks, or there's some sort of shipwreck situation, and her dad ends up dropping Fable off at this island called the Narrows. And then now Fable has to work her way up at the Narrows, survive these like scumbags of people basically, in order to get back to her father who abandoned her on the island. For the promise of one day, how did he word it? For like the promise of one day claiming what was really hers. Wasn't bad at all, so I gave it 3 stars. I did really enjoy it. Just wasn't my favorite. You guys, we're jumping into what I typically read. We're jumping into like the classic Ellie reads. you know? So I read Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and my god, 5 stars right away. I cannot tell you how much I love this book. I read the first book in the series, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite. I really loved a lot of things that were happening in the book, but I didn't necessarily love it as much as I loved this one. Like, this one was flippin' amazing. It had all of the banter, all of the spice that I wanted. It had amazing representation with Zaf and his anxiety. I also have anxiety, and just seeing how he managed and like the way that it was described and dealt with, I didn't like, it was just such a lovely addition to the story that made the characters feel more real, relatable, but it wasn't like very like cliche or poorly done. Like, it was very well done in my opinion, and I just loved everything about this book. Danica Brown is so funny and her like inner thoughts are hilarious. Talia Hibbert, bravo. That's the one thing I loved about Get a Life, Chloe Brown, was like the banter and kind of like the characters, like, I don't even know how to explain it, but this book took that on a whole nother level. It was absolutely amazing. It's gonna be one of my favorite books this year. Like, that is how much I enjoyed it, and I am dying to get a copy of it in my hands to put on my shelf. That's how much I flippin' loved this book. So sticking with the Talia Hibbert theme, I read Act Your Age, Eve Brown, which I enjoyed. I definitely like Take a Hint, Jenny Brown was just on another level, but I really liked Eve, and I really liked kind of like her banter and her style. I thought was so cool. It just felt so Eve, as like Talia Hibbert always says in the book, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. I read it really fast right after Take a Hint, Danny Brown, so I feel like if I was to read it like later on, not having just come off Take a Hint, Danny Brown, I would have rated it a bit higher. I gave it 4 stars. Like, it was still really good. I loved like how the two characters interacted, how like Eve Brown is just this kind of chill, laid back, but also like eccentric kind of character, but then her love interest is like this really like stuck up kind of guy, and done it in a way where she like ruffles his feathers just enough, but he also like banters back. I don't know how to explain it. It was just so enjoyable that I am so excited to read anything that Talia Hibbert writes. Sticking with our common theme here, I think we're running into February, maybe? This is either the last book I read in January or like just finished at the beginning of February. I'm not quite sure. But I read Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Now, this has been on my shelf. I have the physical copy. This is so exciting. Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I loved this. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed One Last Stop. Now, One Last Stop for me just made like my by heart so happy, and just I felt so seen, heard, accepted, and loved. And I really enjoyed this book, but I enjoyed it less from the aspects, not of the relationship at all, but of like the actual plot. And with this book, it was about politics and just the way that our world is right now. And especially when I started this book, I had to shelf it at like page 82 because I was reading it and it was hitting a bit too close to home with the politics and books and politics that were happening around the world. I picked it back up. I listened to the audiobook. I actually really enjoyed it. I found that it kind of picked up, and I was able to get attached to these characters and love the way they interacted with each other, and just kind of like Casey McQuiston's banter is just so funny, and I feel like it's so right for where I am in my life right now, of like the things that she's saying. And I don't know, her writing is beautiful. I find a home in her books, and though I didn't enjoy this one as One Last Stop, I still thoroughly enjoyed it, and I still really liked it, so I give this 4 stars. We're into February for sure at this point, but I read Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. Oh my god, I also have this book. I'm such a bad booktuber. Let's try that again. I read Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. Now, I started reading this probably last year. I got about 100 pages in last year, but I just like wasn't in a place to read it, like to really commit to like all that Crescent City is. Like, she's thick. She's like 790 pages, I think I'm right in saying, something along there. So she just like she's chunky. I just needed like lighter books. Like, I was in a huge reading slump. Like, to start Crescent City in a reading slump was like, I don't know what I was thinking. I wanted to reread it for the second book coming out, but I kind of shot myself in the foot with this one because I kind of rush read it, which like wasn't fair to the book. And so I missed a lot of like the little details which I was trying to pick up on for the second book. And I honestly kind of put myself in a little bit of a slump, even more so. Wasn't quite in the space where I gave it 4 stars 5 stars this way around? 4 or 5 stars. It's a 5-star book. I was just in a weird place when I was reading it, which put me in a weird place to read the next one, but that was my own doing. I love Sarah J. Maas. I love her books. I love her characters. They are such a home. I will forever love this book. I just was in a weird place when I read it, and I don't want to tell you anything about like what it's about because honestly going into this book completely blind the first time was the best decision that I ever made for reading. Like it was so good to go in blind. Heartbreaking, but amazing. Getting the next book that I just pulled off my shelf just made all of my books topple over because I was like double stacking my books like one behind the other, like in the vertical rows. A horrible explanation, but alas. The next book that I finished was The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. Now, let's talk about this. This was my first like seasonal book that I've ever read as like into reading now, and I really enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's such a floppy book. Look at that. It's amazing. I really love The Parent Trap. I love The Christmas Switch. I feel like that's a Christmas movie. Like I feel like there's a holiday movie that, you know, the main character swaps. I feel like I'm correct in saying that, but I really enjoy this book. I found it to be really fun. It was insta-lovey because like it takes place over 12 days, but it was just such like a hug basically, and it was so warm and seasonal, and when I was reading it during Christmas time I was absolutely loving it and feeling all of the holiday vibes, and then my reading slump, you know, just came over me and I wasn't able to finish it, but in February or January, one of these months, I ended up getting it together and finishing it. I think I finished it on audiobook and then might have read the final pages. I'm not exactly sure how I broke it up, but it was so cute and I really enjoyed the ending. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I'll definitely be rereading this holiday season, even though it's very far in advance. It was just such a sweet book. The next book that I read, which was definitely in February, I can tell you it was definitely in February, The Dating Plan by Sarah Desai. I'm so sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly. It's the second book in the Marriage Game series. I did not read the first book and I don't think I will. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was really fun. I made a Goodreads review about it saying, you know, like I enjoyed a lot of aspects of it, especially like the characters. Some parts were kind of hit and miss, basically, was kind of my thing with it. So I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it. It was good. It wasn't my favorite. Nothing to like super write home about in my opinion, but it was still very nice. It was still a really nice read. That was the last thing that I read. So that wraps up all that I read in January and February of 2022. Honestly, I'm very happy with how my reading months have been. If it wasn't for audiobooks, I definitely would not have gotten this far and I would not have read this many books. They exist, so I did. It was very fun. If you guys have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I also am on Bookstagram at _EllieReads. I'm not super posty on there, but I'm always on there if you guys want to chat. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's been so lovely talking to you all again, and I will see you all soon. Bye, everybody.